David acknowledges the fact that he had sinned against the Lord. He's not hiding it. He's not saying, Nathan, you know, sometimes when people tell us the wrong we did, we're ready to tell, man, get out of my face. You can't tell me nothing. Huh? I'm the king. I'm the king. What are you trying to tell me? I'm going to have your head cut off of that mess. Yeah, you could have done that.
As when Nixon said, if the president does it, then it's not wrong.
Good old Nixon. Oh boy, but well, of course we see that Nixon did he stay in office? I don't think so. but here we at least see David confessing his sin, and furthermore saying, I have sinned against not just Bathsheba. Of course, there was sin against her. Not simply the priests and the Levites, because, well, the priests and Levites, they weren't there. They didn't see it. Really, nobody else knew. More than likely, Nathan didn't know. We don't know. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I ain't quite sure. But what we do know is that David acknowledges his sin against the most important factor, God. That above all, I have sinned against the Lord. And this is where we need to make our confessions. Certainly we should make it up to whoever we violated. Certainly we should offer an apology to whoever we did wrong. But above all, we have to acknowledge the fact that here it is, God has done so much. He took me from being an overlooked shepherd boy, put me on a battlefield against this dude, 8 foot tall, 400 pounds of muscle, and let me drop him with a rock and a slingshot, gave me a kingdom of both a southern and northern kingdom of this mishmash of tribes called Israel. And after all God did for me, I had the nerve to sin against him. That's how our confession should be. After all God did for me, I had the nerve to disrespect him like that. Because when you think about it, the people that we violate, you know, sometimes, hey, you know, they did so-and-so to me back in the day. You know, if they wouldn't have been acting like this, or if they weren't that type of person, you know, we can sort of like try to weasel our way around that. You can't weasel your way around God. You can't do it. And that's why David makes that confession. I have sinned against the Lord. I have sinned against the Lord. And Nathan does acknowledge the fact that God does forgive sins. Yes, sins, if you humbly acknowledge, if you humbly and totally acknowledge sin, yes, God does forgive. But there was something I heard from Jeremiah Wright, I guess, 2003, I think it was, 2003 or 2004, saying that just because God has forgiven you does not mean that that crop that you have planted is not going to grow and produce. And certainly David has planted a crop. Little baby planted a crop. That baby was born between him and Uriah the Hittite's wife. God was still going to punish him for planting that crop. And the punishment was that baby, and we don't know whether or not it was boy or girl. The child wasn't named, but nevertheless, that child is going to die. You're not going to enjoy the fruits of your sin. You're not going to enjoy the thing that your sin produced. And even today, we can look at our lives and think about some of the wrong stuff we done. We didn't get to keep all that fun that we thought it was. We didn't get to keep all that good time that we thought it was. In fact, when we look back at it, we wonder, was it really worth it to begin with? Chances are not. So we see, yes, there is that God does forgive sin, but yet there has to be a price to be paid. And that price is the life of this child. And as soon as Nathan went back to his house, that's how soon God acted upon that word being spoken. I think the overall message of the lesson is that there was a prophet Nathan that took courage to speak truth to power. And yes, it does take courage to speak truth to power. Let us be mindful that only when we rely on God can we really have the courage to do it. And that in speaking truth to power, it helps to be tactful. It helps to put the argument, it helps to put the problem in a way that the person you're speaking to can understand, but not be completely repulsed by what you're saying. And not only that, but even when you try to be tactful, every now and then, some people just don't get it because they've been so blocked by sin. Sometimes we just don't get it because we've been so blinded by the sins that we've committed. So sometimes God just has to have somebody to just blurt out the truth to us.
Yeah, and also sometimes people don't get it because they see in the person that's delivering the message that their desires aren't in line with God's desires.
Mm-hmm.
And here you are telling me, Charles Stanley, I was in that church Sunday before that Charles Stanley laid out about your desires, man's desires, and God desires, and how praying and for blessings and why things don't happen. There's a lot to this here thing. You know, there's a lot to obedience and doing all the right things and aligning your desires with His.
Digging. What?
And Brother Mickens mentioned earlier, David thought